The Gilded Age Season 2, Episode 5 has recently been released, and the storylines are moving supersonically. Especially Ada's marriage to Mr. Forte happened way quicker than I imagined. I also have reservations about where Peggy's storyline has been going, while also being worried that Oscar is getting manipulated by Jay Gould's daughter. Everything goes well for Bertha, as always, and that has started to get old. Yet, despite all of my concerns, Episode 5 was one of the best of the season. Agnes's vulnerability while talking to the Reverend, and her last-minute decision to come to the wedding. Watson saving Bertha's dinner, and Gladys's careless attitude towards the Duke were all things I loved and died for. Let's do a review of every major storyline. I have a lot to say. At first, I thought the show would have a lavender marriage storyline for Oscar and his new friend, but this episode made things clearer. I believe Oscar is being scammed by Maud. All she ever did was talk about her business and how her father made her work so hard. Now, she involved Oscar in it and took him to the office. Oscar is most likely screwing himself with that investment. The trailer for this season included a shot of Oscar going into an empty office and looking around, which I think is the same office he went to in this episode. So everything was probably a front to get his money. But maybe Maud is just a tool her father uses and she doesn't really have malicious intent, although this is a little hard to believe. Tell me what you think about this in the comments. I still don't understand what they are doing with Peggy's storyline. I'm not even talking about the fact that they are involving her in an affair with a married man. At first, I was happy to see a thriving African-American family living in New York in the 1880s. That's such a rare thing to see on TV and in movies since the industry always focuses on what happened down south. But here's the show doing the unoriginal thing and letting Peggy go to the south. I mean, the show is supposed to be about the Gilded Age in New York City. There is such a rich history of African-American families in New York that the show could tap into, but it refuses to do that. Also, I remember reading her character was inspired by Ida B. Wells, but I don't see much correlation right now. As for what happened, the revelation that the terrorist guy at the end used to own David's family as a slave owner was quite heartbreaking. I told you something bad could happen to David. Now I believe the terrorist group could get retribution once they realize Mr. Fortune and Peggy are out of town. Maybe David will be lynched or his mother's restaurant will be burned down. I know that this storyline is here to show us the contrast between what's happening in places like Alabama for Black people compared to what's going on in New York. While one party fears for their life by hiding in a barn, the others are dealing with pouring soup on some duke. Although I love the realism, I still wish for more escapism. That's all. I honestly thought Ada's engagement would last until the end of the season, but the show is not taking things slowly. Other than the fact that it was fast, I loved this storyline. The fact that Agnes swallowed her pride and decided to show up made me tear up, I won't lie to you. Also, her talk with the Reverend where she opened up could be the first time we ever saw her that vulnerable. I certainly liked it. We all knew she didn't want to let go of Ada out of pure love for her sister, and maybe a tiny bit of selfishness and pride, but we needed to see that moment of vulnerability as an audience. It was perfect. Still, I don't believe things will end well for Ada. In the previous trailer that I mentioned, there's a scene where Ada cries and hugs Agnes, which makes me think something bad could happen to Mr. Forte. It was also not realistic to expect Ada to be out of the Van Ryn household. Her conversations with Agnes have been a huge part of the show. They wouldn't let go of that dynamic easily. Turner definitely disappointed me in this episode. She could have at least been a little more cold-blooded while Peter was going on with the plan. Her facial expressions exposed her intentions. She's not professional enough to fight a war against Bertha. I like the fact that Bertha's getting win after win, but I also can't help but feel that she's depicted to be too unbeatable. Like, where's the almighty Mrs. Astor? Why doesn't Turner use her brain more? If the rivalry was a bit stronger, it would be more enjoyable. I hope Turner gets back at Bertha with a bigger plan. I did love how it was Watson who saved the day and the fact that now George knows about his troubles. It seems like George may interfere in Watson's business now that he has proved his worth for the Russells once again. Speaking of George, I like that they made his right hand more extreme with his opinions because the anti-union stuff was not a good look for George. He's still anti-union, but he at least showed some compassion in understanding why the workers would need more spare time after their work. The next episode will be a showdown between him and the workers in Pittsburgh, so we'll see where he really stands. The Brooklyn Bridge storyline with a female engineer was a great inclusion to the story. It should be nice for you to know that this in fact did happen when the real Emily Roebling contributed greatly to the construction of the bridge when her husband fell ill. Another thing that I loved was how Marion doesn't seem to be charmed by Dashiell's advances. The little kid is still annoying as hell. Marion and Larry forever. Now that Mrs. Blaine is out of the picture, all we need is to see Dashiell go as well. Then season 3 could focus on Marion and Larry. I also enjoyed seeing the house staff at Ada's wedding. That was such a nice touch. That's all I have as far as episode 5 is concerned. You can tell me what you liked and didn't in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share this video. I will analyze the trailer for the next episode tomorrow, so subscribe to next season and don't miss that out. See you soon.